Srilekha ji, first of all, it's really a pleasure to have you in this discussion, and thanks for agreeing to join us. I'm sure our friends, our community members would very much like to hear from you and what you stand for so that they would be able to make the critical decision come the election day. So with that, I'd like to start by saying that Ms. Palle is running for the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors for the Sully District.
That is correct.
So let's start by asking her what areas are covered by the Sully District.
Debasisji, first of all, namaste. Namaste to you and namaste to all the audience. It's a privilege to talk to you. You are known as a great community leader and you're known as a selfless person, so it's an honor. Just kind of talking about my own candidacy, Sully District covers Centreville, Chantilly, Fairfax, and parts of Herndon and parts of Clifton area. So I always say the greater Sully District has about 140,000 households and about 80,000 homes in general. So it's a large district to cover.
Yes, that's wonderful and indeed true. These board positions, we know that they're very important. We engage with our board members and they get to make a lot of critical decisions that affect our day-to-day life. But in your own words, if you'd like to say why this position is important and what's the driving force for you to run for this position?
So Debasisji, right through my adult life, I have two children that go to Fairfax County schools. One of them is in elementary school, the other one is a senior in Chantilly High School. Right. I've always been extremely involved in their schools. So as a result of that, I understand policies, or I understand policies that impact or that can't impact. Okay. So that was one of my driving force to be involved in policy making. Right. And also I've always been involved in community, especially in Asian American community and healthcare industry. And I kind of understand that without having people, parents, community members be involved in these designated roles, it's hard to actually make the changes that we complain behind the scenes. So that's what actually motivated me to get into this position.
Thank you. Before we get involved in some of the main agenda items, I sometimes like to ask the candidates about a little bit about their background because that helps the viewers to sort of understand where you're coming from. So, for example, you know, a little bit about you, your family, when you migrated to the US, and what are some of the challenges and inspirations perhaps that you drew from?
Sure. Yeah. Debasisji, I've been living in the United States for about 20 years and about 15 years is where my livelihood has been in Fairfax community. I'm an immigrant, as you know, from India. So coming from Indian background, I already imbibed culture of hard work, tenacity, right. Being very self-reliant and not depend on anything but more of a giver versus a taker. So that already came in. And again, I'm very faith-based religious person. So all those came in and I tried to inculcate in our communities right here in an American community. And I think American values are no different than what I just said. I'm a healthcare professional by background. I jokingly tell all my friends that I live and breathe healthcare. I'm extremely passionate about it, and I'm also a small business owner.
Yeah. And so those, so we talked about your professional life, but I might add for the viewers your educational qualifications. You are a PhD and an MBA. And education is that common factor that determines a lot of the integrity, the how we apply to things, and that's always helpful. And then we'll move over to one other topic which is kind of related. Before people run for office, of course your qualifications help you a lot, but the other thing that's very helpful is how engaged are you in the community. That could be, you know, social activities, community service, that kind of thing. So build the network. Sure. And build the bond in the community. I don't think there's any politician who's, you know, who can skip that step. You have to do that first. Correct. Before you can even dream of running for office. Correct. We know that you were the president of the Durga Temple. Correct. And I'm probably not as aware of some of your other community activities. Could you say that for our viewers, what you're involved with?
Just about Durga Temple, I pride on saying that I was the president of Durga Temple. Yeah. And it's a North Indian temple, and Durga Temple congregation was extremely supportive, although coming from a South Indian background and may not have the Hindi fluency like a North Indian does, but they were extremely supportive in putting that. That kind of being said, through Durga Temple, I've served the entire Indian community to my best of abilities. But I also expanded my volunteering services to Asian communities. I was a vice president for South Asian Public Health Association, where I tried to focus on creating what is called as brown paper. And brown paper is research articles to all those diseases that affect South Indians, and South Asian communities.
We know about white paper, but this is brown paper.
This is brown paper is what we call.
Okay.
And also I'm part of American Healthcare Executives Forum, and I try to focus on Asian Health Leaders Forum. So trying to bring in Asian health leaders into C-suite level in the American healthcare system. So apart from that, I enjoy doing a lot of rural healthcare. So I volunteer as part of Vincent Ferrer Foundation. That is based in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
That serves rural communities in Andhra Pradesh, where the place I come. So I tend to go every summer and spend a couple of weeks in kind of working on tropical diseases in rural areas. So, I mean, so on and so forth. I do like American Heart Association. I enjoy, in fact, my kids and entire family and community, this own community. The community I live in come together. We do a lot of bake sales and raise a lot of money for research for Greater Washington Hot Walk too. So always been involved. Community service is something that I thrive upon, and I truly enjoy doing it.
That's great. And this healthcare that you mentioned, so when you go and ask a person on the street, what are your 3 key points that that's in your minds, or you want the candidate to have? Healthcare almost always features as the common factor.
Yes.
So the fact that you have that background on both the administrative side and perhaps on the functional side will probably help you in this position. Now coming to some of the core agenda items as well, we talk about fiscal discipline a lot, right? So around this area, where a lot of our professionals and also the high-tech industry is, a lot of the Indian Americans are, live and work here. One of the things we talk about a lot is taxes, because now this is my perspective. If the tax rate grows around the same rate, let's say, as your income, then most people, I think, will not complain.
Correct.
But if your tax rate is growing 2 times, 3 times your income, not only will people complain, but some of them may be taxed out of their home.
That is correct.
And I think you have a plan there, but can you explain to our viewers how you're going to attack this problem?
So Debasisji, I mean, there has been a tendency in the past few years that people are migrating away. Like the word that you used, we are taxed out. We've had an increase of 5 times the real estate taxes, 5 times the property taxes. And if you're talking about how do I tackle it, I think that's where the fiscal discipline comes into picture. I give you a very tiny example as a mom, more than anything. My child alone lived in trailers. I say lived in because school is pretty much the second home for kids. Lived in trailers for 2 years in a row. And if my child is living, I'm sure there are several thousands of children going to school and living in trailers, right? I said that if you maintain a fiscal discipline in Fairfax County is considered to be one of the richest county in the entire country. Right. So why do our students go, we have 800 trailers in public school system. So you start wondering what fiscal discipline we are employing in the richest county that we have in Fairfax County. Why do we have 800? So I question about whether when we are budgeting, are we budgeting based on priorities? Are we budgeting what is called a zero-based budgeting? Are we actually looking at our measurable outcomes and re-evaluating our outcomes and changing the course of action? Or are we just spending money because we don't understand what fiscal discipline means? So I think if I am elected into the office, those are the first thing that I'll be looking into it. Let's not go ahead and spend money just because you spent 100 million last year. Let's go ahead and start with zero-based and see what are the most needed projects. How are we going to keep our commuters safe? How are we going to keep our teachers away from extra burden of administrative? What are we going to do to make sure that our kids are getting out of trailers so they're studying in a safer atmosphere? And then ensure that we discipline ourselves fiscally. Don't we do that at home? So we're going to do that same thing for the county.
So reevaluate the dynamics, not just base it on, oh, this is what it was last year, and just make it just a statistic.
100%.
So you have to be more of a ground level problem solver and reevaluating the situation and making the changes.
Absolutely, sir.
Okay, so that's obviously an important point. Another important point that you cannot escape over here, especially living around here where we have large bedroom communities and folks have to travel sometimes far away to go to work, it affects their productivity at work,
Correct.
it affects their quality of life at home. And a lot of people tried solutions and some of it worked out, but perhaps do you think for transportation we need not just infrastructure, but maybe some smart solutions, which could be, I don't know, bike lanes, it could be telecommuting, it could be a combination of other things. What's, from your perspective, how are you going to tackle the transportation issue in this region?
I think you said a combination of everything, and also looking into metro system efficiency. I mean, for how many years have we heard that metro system board is corrupted? But what did we do about resolving the corruptions, right? So I think all the things that you said, looking at telecommuter benefit, looking at smart benefits, expanding our roads, ensuring that metro system, transit system is working effectively. What do we do to work with Maryland government and try to see what can we do on Potomac River that would help us with our transit, interdevelopmental transits, interstate transit. So I think there are many, many options. It only requires a motivated leader to spot each and every option that we have out there and reach the aisle outside and try to come up and talk to the experts. I mean, there has been many people that are up in land use committee and other boards that have said that as a professionals, they have not been reached out to. I mean, reach out to subject matter experts. Isn't that where you get the rich content? I wouldn't say I have all the solutions, but I think I'm one of those leaders that would go to the right person and right subject matter expert and engage them to solve the issues.
So you would form like a board or panels where you'd invite the experts and
Absolutely.
give you advice and interact and take their input to solve real
Absolutely.
life problems. Okay, next question that comes to mind could be a little controversial, but being a candidate, probably you are used to controversial questions rather. So the issue of a sanctuary city. Certain sections of the public
Sure.
are concerned that perhaps there are pockets in Fairfax which are becoming a sanctuary community where you have undocumented immigrants, some of whom could even be criminals or criminal
Correct.
background. And what's your position on a sanctuary city or sanctuary community? Also related to this, do you feel that the current, current regulations or policy regarding sanctuary cities preventing law enforcement, including ICE, to properly implement federal immigration laws?
Devasis, that's such a great question, and I think our community needs to hear. And as leaders, we should not be shying away from saying what we believe in. My opponent has signed the law and supporting the sanctuary city, and I completely disagree with that. I feel that I'm a legal immigrant myself, so I'm very supportive of immigrant population.
Right.
But illegal immigration is something that I cannot support. But I will not support criminal activity regardless of their status. It just the status does not really matter at all. If you're a criminal, you're a criminal. Period. End of the story. And if you're a criminal, illegal immigrant, ICE needs to be involved. And I think that I said one thing that county government can do the best, their own constituents, is public safety. If I'm a constituent and if I'm not running, I'm a mom, I'll say keep my kids safe, keep me safe, and that's why I'm putting you on the road. I think property taxes, fiscal discipline, everything is important, but public safety is the most important. And I don't think we should support sanctuary city policies at all, and we should give full rights to our police officers and respect their judgment when they take care of these criminals.
Right, right. So we understand there are some points in favor and against, but I believe what you're saying is we have to draw that line somewhere so that, you know, there are federal laws. There are also the fact that we have to have a peace and safety and security in the community, and a law that's not allowing that to fully happen. It's time to do something about it. All right, great. I think we have covered a lot of the questions, but my next question, okay, one more regarding transportation is that we all know, and we are somewhat excited about is we know that Amazon is opening up their second headquarters in Crystal City. But the other side of the coin is that there'll probably be about, I don't know, employing 25,000 people, something like that. Now, a lot of them would probably be settling in Fairfax County. The infrastructure, the transportation system is already sort of at its limit. are you thinking ahead of time of some of the solutions that you may be able to offer to a lot of these folks who are going to come and reside in your district or in your community?
This is precisely one of the questions I asked in one of the committee when I attended a Board of Supervisors meeting, and current Board of Supervisors don't have the plan, and that scares me because, as you said, we are already at a max capacity. So if you don't know, if we can't even analyze and assess what their impact is going to be on a police, fire services, and what their impact is going to be on schools, because a lot of kids will flood into schools, and that's a disaster currently, right? I wouldn't be able to say that I have a huge comprehensive plan, but I'm already thinking in that angle. I've engaged a few of the community members from land use committees and from other infrastructure committees. I engage in conversations with them. So hopefully we can have a great plan because otherwise, as you said, we are already maxed out. It is only going to get worse.
Right.
Yeah.
So what we'd like to do is use the rest of the time to open up, you tell us if anything that's important in your mind that we did not cover and that you want to highlight for our viewers.
Debasisji, one thing that I always say is that as an Asian American community member and as an Indian community member that's always been involved in community and public service, I think we have given our time, talent and treasure to America, and this is our country. Right? One thing that we failed consistently to deliver is use our privilege of voting. I don't think as Asian Americans 100% of us go out to vote. So I plead that do not let small members of your community decide how your leaders or what kind of leaders get into your service. It's highly important that Asian Americans are in school boards, they're in community service boards, they're in supervisor boards, they're delegates, they're senators, they're congressmen, because that is the only way our values would be reflected. So I plead that each one of you will look at this video, feel motivated, talk to your family members, talk to your neighbors, your own adult children, and ensure that you come out and vote and support all the candidates. I of course want you to support me as a Sully District Board of Supervisor position, but I think just support and exercise your right is what I'm going to say.
So in this connection, would you have any message to our viewers on voter registration and also early voting?
Yeah, early voting is already on. Voter registration's deadline was October 15th, but early voting is on. I always say November 5th comes along and we all find a lot of reasons of why not to vote. Oh, I came late from work, or I had to take my children to the activities. I mean, that's the life. That is the real life. So I highly recommend taking advantage of early voting. It happens on a daily basis in the main community center. For example, in Sully, it's happening in Sully Government Center. And on weekends, many polling stations are open. I urge you to go. It is like a quick in and out. It's 5 minutes thing. But before you enter into any government center, make sure you speak to the party lines, understand what their values stand for, and vote for the right candidate. But please do take advantage of early voting. I think that's the best way to protect our democracy.
All right, that's good. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank you for the service that you have already rendered to the community, and of course like to wish you well on election day. Any final thoughts for our viewers?
No, I think I am fully appreciative of the fact that community leaders are out there to support the right candidates, and one of them is you. So I sincerely appreciate that, and I'm looking forward to being representing Sully District Board of Supervisor. Hope you have the utmost confidence in me, and you'll come out to support me on November 5th.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Ms. Palle.
Thank you.